Welcome to Stories and Songs, a series of interviews with musicians from the world of jazz and improvisation. I'm Andrea Keller, and I'm thrilled today to be speaking with Tia Fuller. Welcome, Tia, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Andrea.
My first question, what have been the pivotal events in your musical journey?
Oh my goodness. Um, there are so many. The ironic thing is, I realize that everything has prepared me for the next step, which is now in retrospect, I'm able to see that. But let me see. Off at the top of my head, I think um, really going from undergrad, from where I graduated, and then I went to college at University of Colorado at Boulder and got my master's in jazz pedagogy and performance. But I think that transition, taking a year off and then moving out to New York, was one of the major decisions that I made that really pivoted me into the next phase of where my vision for myself was, because I knew that I wanted to perform. I wanted to have my own quartet. I wanted to travel. I also wanted to teach to a certain degree, but I was really focusing on my performance. So I would say that would be one major pivotal point in my career. Um, and then throughout the interim of performing with my band and being a side woman with like Ralph Peterson Jr., playing in big bands with John Faddis Orchestra, and getting the experience of not only being a leader but being a side woman and how to navigate through the scene. And then, of course, I think really expanding my trajectory and my perspective was making Beyonce's all-female band in 2006. And of course, I was on a path of just playing jazz, and I was playing some wedding bands, but that was an eye opener as to this other world, this R&B world, and how to again navigate through that, working with an A-list pop artist and touring all over the world at least a dozen times and then some. And throughout the year being on tour for at least 110 dates. So that was pivotal. And then lastly, I would say, and probably I wouldn't say the most important, but it's like where I've been able to give back, and that's being at Berkeley and being a professor at Berkeley College of Music out here in Massachusetts, and how now I'm seeing I was being prepared for the past 15, 20 years throughout my experience to where now I'm able to give back, which is, in essence, it's what Diamond Cut is about. And I know we're going to talk about that a little later, but the process of becoming a diamond and then giving back, sharing the light.
Fabulous, thank you. And what have some of the obstacles been along the way in your musical journey, and how have you dealt with them?
Woo. So in the very beginning, of course, being one of the only women, and especially one of the only Black women who has been in predominantly white male environment, and had to really not hold my own, but really just sustain myself, and to be strong. I remember when I first moved out to New York, I always tell this story, but in New York, they have jam sessions, and usually they go until all hours of the night, and there were a lot of young musicians, and it would be like a line almost to the door, from the stage to the door. And so you get in line, and of course, I was one of the only women who was playing an instrument. And so I got up there, and I started, after waiting in this long line with everybody else, I started playing my instrument, and then some guy walked up and started playing right in front of me. And I was like, okay. So in the back of my head, that was a sheer indication of that's the first and the last time that's going to happen. And so, dealing with things such as that is even in talking with um, club owners and negotiating fees, or um, trying to speak business to club owners and booking gigs and all that. And early on, sometimes club owners would get it kind of twisted and think that they could use it as an opportunity to hit on you. And so it was, for me, I would say, in light of that, because coming from Colorado, I'd always come to a situation with a smile on my face and, try to be accommodating. But I've learned how to balance the strength of being a woman and balance the strength of my voice as to being able to be taken seriously and not taken advantage of, but not losing the element of femininity as well.
And do you have a motto or a personal philosophy that guides you, or is there any particular advice that you'd like to share with emerging musicians?
Oh yeah, I have a whole book of them.
Right. Tell us, please.
One in particular was the impetus for one of my albums, Decisive Steps. And all of my albums have quotes and affirmations with them that are reflective of what I'm going through. And in particular, this was moving forward in faith and not fear with Decisive Steps. And I specifically chose that title because I was on tour with Beyonce, and at the time it was my fourth year being with her, and I felt like it was time for me to move on. And long story short, I ended up leaving, and because I felt like it was more for me to do and to pursue my own career. And so, but that, to me, that quote has stuck with me, and being at a crossroads and seeing, okay, am I choosing the faithful path or the faithful route, or am I choosing the fearful route? And this is something I share with my students, in that there's always going to be an element of fear, and then there's always going to be an element of faith. At the point at which the element of fear supersedes the element of faith, that's what you don't want to walk in. So just shift it around, make sure that faith is higher than the fear, and from that point, it's like, okay. And every single time, Andrea, every single time I've made a decision and I've tapped into that element of faith, even though I'm scared, it has opened up more than abundance of opportunity for me. And not only for me, but then I've been able to extend that to my friends and families, and, create other opportunities for people. So that is one of the quotes that I live by.
That is a gem. Thank you for sharing that with us. And could you nominate an album that you've created that's particularly important to you, and tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Yes, Diamond Cut is my latest release, and that was in 2018. And it actually got a Grammy nomination, which is really, really exciting. Terri Lyne Carrington produced it, and it had Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, Adam Rogers, James Genus, Bill Stewart all on it. And, this term diamond kept coming to me as I was writing for the album. And I was like, why is this term? And it took me a while to kind of piece it together, but then I started doing research, and I saw that the research was correlating with my life. And that was, okay, looking at the process of a diamond, there's a 3-part process, macro process. And the first part is when a diamond is embedded in the earth, it looks like a piece of coal. But the diamond knows that it has purpose to be a diamond. And so I was like, man, okay, I'm kind of feeling like a piece of coal right now. But let me, dig into this, because I know I have purpose, and I've had certain successes, but I felt like I was going back under. And this is when I moved out here and I started teaching, and there was a lot of stuff going on with my management, booking agent, a lot of that I had to kind of replenish. So the second phase is that in order for a diamond to continue to evolve, that they have to go through an extreme amount of pressure and temperature to rise to the top of the Earth's surface. So at the time, once again, I'm looking at my life and I'm like, man, my mom had a stroke, and she now is unfortunately suffering with dementia, but I'm having to go back and forth to Colorado. My dad, he's in pretty good health, but just, having to deal with aging parents, that's one. And then, all of the tribulations that life has to offer to kind of etch more into our diamondness. So enduring an extreme amount of pressure and temperature in order to rise. So I'm like, whew, okay, I'm there. I feel that. And then the third part, which is actually the name of the album, Diamond Cut. When I researched that term doesn't pertain to size or shape, but it pertains to the amount, the proportioning and the amount of light that is reflected throughout the diamond. That's where the brilliance lies. And I was like, man, here I am in Massachusetts, and I'm teaching, and all of these experiences that I have had, the trials and tribulations, the struggles, the triumphs, the celebrations, all of these, I'm able to now pour back into and give this light back to my students. And so Diamond Cut, it's not about shining and being important, but it's about reflecting the brilliance of the light and just being, but reflecting that and knowing there's an element of give back in the cyclic approach of life. And with that, that cycle, again, sometimes it feels like we have to go back under. And we have to start all over again. We have to reinvent ourselves as artists. We're in this pandemic now, and we're, quarantining and in our house and trying to reinvent, find new ways of performance. And so this constant continuum of this cycle of light and love.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for revealing that to us. I think it's it's going to be great for us. We can't wait to listen to your.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks so much for your time today, Tia. I really appreciate it. You've been absolutely wonderful sharing all your story and thoughts with us. Wishing you all the very best, Tia Fuller.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.